Before we start today, a very, very quick update on our fourth panelist, Lisa Patterson. Lisa, unfortunately, will not be joining us today. As some of you know, the UK government now requires an ETA to get in. She applied for one, normally takes 1 minute, but luckily or unluckily for her, hers was marked for a manual review. And so in the greatest of all ironies, our product expert, who is focused on automating the path from data to decisions, is currently waiting for a human to manually process a digital form. But the show must go on. So, I'm Lindsie Bristow. I'm responsible for global business development at NavVis, and I'm so lucky to be joined today by Annika Vestergaard, who leads the reality capture discipline at Ramboll, one of the world's largest and leading engineering and design consultancies, and Peter Hewitt, who is the engineering leader of the survey and monitoring team for Laing, one of the UK's largest Tier 1 contractors, delivering everything from hospitals and data centers to energy infrastructure and major civils. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Not so long ago, detailed reality capture of complex sites meant days of setup, specialist crews, and significant cost. That kept it out of reach for most projects, reserved for the ones big enough to justify the budget. What we've seen is SLAM change that equation and trigger a transition from one-off documentation to scanning at every critical milestone. Reality capture becomes a live pulse on projects rather than a snapshot in time. So I'll start off with Annika. When did your team start integrating scan data into multiple phases?
So Ramboll has been exploring scanning for as long as it has been existing, but there's definitely seeing a shift with having SLAM as an option. We have been able to scan way more square meters and do these captures way more efficiently than was possible before. And we've been able to actually go out and capture in early phases instead of waiting until detailed design to do scanning. We can do that already in when we do the planning stage, and then we have data for detailed design later on as well. So it's not something we can do it in multiple phases, but the project can also use it in multiple phases, so that one data set, and then as construction goes on, could do multiple scannings afterwards instead of just having resources to do one scanning that takes a long time.
No, that's awesome. And I think you are also uniquely positioned as consultants, where you're also empowering your end customers in their own reality capture journeys and adoption. How have you guys approached that?
Yeah, definitely. As consultants, we advise our clients on how to actually integrate reality capture as a discipline and as not an afterthought on a project. So what do you get from doing it in early phase, and what do you like lose to wait until detailed design, for example? So like scanning can now be done on so many different levels. You can have your surveyor, your the construction company that you're using doing it, and your contractors, or the clients can actually also go out and do it themselves. So that's where we try to advise on what strategy makes sense. When does it make sense to have the contractor do this? When does it make sense that you actually do it yourself during daily operations? And when do you need maybe a third party to go out and do it, and in what phases does that make sense?
Thank you. And now to you, Peter. Laing didn't just adopt SLAM. You evaluated it very, very seriously before adding it to your toolkit. So I'm curious, what workflows justified that decision finally?
I think as with Ramboll, we started using scanning probably back in 2009 when we were building Heathrow, or building Terminal 5 at Heathrow. So we've continued to use it over that time, and we became aware of the fact that you could get much faster scanning carried out using SLAM, but we just couldn't see the accuracy And so surveyors are known for being quite particular and wanting to be precise about the information that they get. And we have a research and development facility just outside of Nottingham. And so we put every single SLAM LiDAR system available in the UK through the same scanning process to look at speed of processing and, more importantly, the accuracy and repeatability of the scans that we got. And so it's then just been a process of going, well, particularly where we're doing, so we're part of Great Grid, and particularly where we are doing refits on substations, and so we're looking at installing quite large pieces of equipment, M&E equipment, into small spaces. You need to be able to capture that information from existing buildings to make sure that it'll all fit together. These days, a 2D plan of a 1960s substation just doesn't cut it.
No, absolutely. And I believe that you're making a really, really good point here regarding speed and efficient capture is absolutely worthless if the data quality isn't sufficient to the job to be done or the deliverable. So I think this is exactly where NavVis has really hung their hat on trying to bridge that gap between the efficiency of a mobile device, but without compromising too much, because I won't tell you as a surveyor it's exactly the same, but getting as close to survey grade as we can within a mobile solution. So you're on the other side of the evaluation process. You've taken us on board. Where is SLAM now really earning its place in your projects?
So I think we're at the early stages of seeing where and how we can push out the use of the SLAM technology. As I said, because of the scale of some of the projects that we're taking on board and the extent of the existing structures, the NavVis has really come into its own in being able to, what would take a week using a static scanner on a tripod, we're now able to collect that data within a day, so allowing us to cover much larger areas. I guess the next step is then looking at repeating those scans during the construction process to see then how progress and program are being tracked using the scanning, and maybe where people are currently using 360 cameras to capture progress data, to then add in the additional quality data that you get from a point cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think often with these different types of projects, you're going to have to leverage, a variety of kit to get to the end results that you need. So, Annika, for you, how do you decide which capture method you're going to use on a project? But also, how do you mitigate against avoiding disconnected data silos across that project?
Yeah, so usually projects are not the same. It's not often that we go out and do the same thing every time. There's always a little bit of difference. We in Ramboll, we utilize a lot of different methods for reality capture, from traditional tripod scanners to SLAM scanners like NavVis's, and we also use 360 images and so on. We use drones, we use photogrammetry, we use mobile mappers on cars, whatever fits the job. But I will say, during the last years, 80% of all captures is with mobile scanners of some sort. What we always do is we combine this data in like a single, not in a single file necessarily, because data accuracy and so on can be different, so it's also important to keep things separate. But for the projects, it's important to have everything collected so it can be accessible for everyone, so you don't have several files laying around and also laying around on different people's PCs. We had a really good experience combining everything in a web platform. We use IVION for that. It just creates a space where you can have all the data available. We combine everything. We put drone data into IVION, and we put our RTC laser scanning data in there as well, and the project can just extract whatever area that they need, regardless of what kind of method that has been used.
Awesome. And another aspect that comes in is inheriting scan data or documentation and how that can impact teams. So I'm curious, when you've inherited data that wasn't, say, fit for purpose, how has that impacted your teams previously, and how has that changed since adopting the NavVis SLAM solution?
Like for us, it still creates a lot of work for us. So in that case, it's a good thing, but not in the overall scheme of things. We do still spend a lot of time on when we get data from different sources to try to combine it, but and looking through and figuring out what has actually been done. But when we get to that point, our projects, we combine everything in one viewer, and that could be IVION. So the project has that available.
And Peter, for you, how has that impacted your teams?
I guess one of the things that Laing is well known for is off-site manufacture, and so we're bringing components, whether they are M&E components or structural components, onto site, and so you have to know that when you bring this component onto site, it will fit. And relying on third-party data when you're trying to drop a prefabricated lift into a structural concrete, you need to know that those measurements are accurate. So the tendency is for us to effectively go out and collect that information ourselves, so that we have the assurance to make sure that the components that we're going to be used as part of the construction will fit in the locations that they are that they're required.
Absolutely. And in your opinion, where in the project timelines is the reality gap the most expensive to discover?
Well, given the amount of cost that there is associated with not being able to fit things in, that's where you have a major problem. Because as soon as you've put a 3-ton concrete unit on the crane and you're about to drop it into place, that then starts becoming very expensive very quickly. So being able to gain assurance on the information that you've got, and to be able to use that information to assist with the design that our digital engineering teams do, and then make sure that our manufacturing company are able to provide that and it fits, is vital to us, because otherwise the entire chain of construction falls apart.
Absolutely. And so to Annika, where have you seen the clearest return on investment since making SLAM scanning part of how you work?
So where we use SLAM a lot is when we have large square meters that we need to scan. If it's office buildings or anything that large buildings, or if we need to capture something a bit faster. So, what was your question again?
Where's the clearest return on investment that you've noticed?
Yeah, so when we start doing this in the beginning of the projects, like, we don't spend time trying to figure out where all drawings are, or can we maybe use the drawings, and what can we do from that. Like, we go out, we scan right away, so all project members can have access to this data. That's where we see it really benefits the projects, and it's definitely something that the client noticed as well. We also see examples of where clients get so happy with the data that they want to adapt it and use it going further than the project.
Awesome. And Peter, same to you, but maybe with a twist. Where's a surprising ROI that you've realized since adopting SLAM workflows?
I think so. So we're doing one particular job where we've effectively taken over an old hospital, and being able to get the degree of accuracy that was needed by the architectural specialists who were manufacturing the units that were then going to fit inside the existing structure. And the speed with which we were then able to respond to questions from the architect in order to be able to say, will this fit? How do we fit this in here? That speed of process was what was impressive for us.
Nice. So I think we've seen the industry develop to a degree that we've solved for efficiency. We can capture a lot of data at a high enough quality. And now we need to start looking forward into how do we create even more value off of that data that's being generated. So to you, Peter, where do you see that future? Right now, there's obviously problems with gigabytes of point clouds being stored, who knows what, but how would you describe that problem more effectively?
When you share the information on software on cloud platforms and people can see the data, everybody is always impressed by the quality of the information you can gather from point clouds. But the file sizes are still way too big to be able to use in Autodesk's Construction Cloud or Navisworks. It'll cause it to fall over. So for me, it's the automated process of being able to convert a point cloud into model data that will have the biggest will increase the spread of the use of the point cloud data and make it more usable by more people. And we're starting to see it. You are starting to see some component auto recognition in some software platforms, and we're seeing that in NavVis's own platform. And I think that's kind of like, that's sort of the next step is how do we get a place where we can translate point cloud data into an IFC model component so it can then be adopted by the digital engineering modelers.
So this might get a little spicy because I know Annika has a view that she wants less IFC models. So Annika, to you, I'm curious, you've heard this frustration in the room, I'm sure not the first time, but in your experience of working closely with clients that are getting value out of captured data and point clouds, what are they doing differently?
Yeah, so definitely IFC BIM models are still a very important part of engineering and how many disciplines work. But do we need to model everything? Can we just use the point cloud as is? Every time we model, we make some assumptions. We can acquire really high accuracy data, but then someone makes an assumption about it while they're modeling. So how useful was that exactly? As said, we do need modeling, but can we use the point cloud where the point cloud is enough and only model where it's actually needed? A client that asks for full MEP modeling of a site, that's very, very expensive. Maybe we could model only the components that's actually needed for the project and then use the scanning for the rest. It could also be like for site management, like you don't probably need every detail modeled, but it's still very useful for whoever's managing that site. But you need some areas, maybe. You need some context to it. So when we start to actually be able to extract stuff from the point cloud more directly, and maybe not as IFC or in 3D necessarily, then making more context to those points may be sufficient.
I don't disagree with what Annika has said. That there are, in the UK in particular, things around the Fire Safety Act, where we're looking at fire stopping, and you're looking to process the data in order to be able to prove compliance. There is a need in those instances to be able to model the closures to demonstrate that the correct separation is there, and you can use that. And there are existing processes in place. And you're right. I mean, at the moment, you can't easily do it. It takes too long. But you are starting to see some software packages where you're getting much better and speedier and cheaper auto recognition of components.
So given that Lisa's not here and you had one request to make for how the software develops over the next 3 years, let's get it on film, on record, and put that out into the universe. What would that be?
Was that for me?
For both.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we need to make these, do some intelligent decisions with these point clouds. Like, how can we extract information from the point clouds and make the data more smart? So then we don't need to model everything. Of course, new builds, we need models for that. But when we're going for as-builds or further on in like the lifetime of that building or project, then we may not need to model and update a model all the time. But we still need to know what's going on more than just a dead point.
Perfect.
Yeah, automatic component recognition, so that you can validate the as-built against the model more efficiently.
Beautiful. So I know we're running out of time. If you do want to ask a few questions, I would say we probably would need to approach us directly after, or do we have time for a Q&A? 2 minutes? Okay, if you have any questions for the panelists, please raise your hand. If you're too shy, we can close out. Anyone? No? Okay. So big thank you to Peter and Annika for sharing all of your insights today. Been very generous with all of your stories. If you're interested in continuing the conversation, please feel free to find any of us after the presentation. Also, if you're curious to see those solutions in action, you can visit the NavVis team at booth G142 and to see that hardware and software in action. But thank you guys so much for joining.